was to control the media, there are things that I would have done. There are positive things, and actually there are many things that the media did, and actually I relied heavily on the print media for me to get actually even what Obama brought. Like now the headlines was showing what Obama brought. So I relied heavily on that, and actually even people in my constituency, I tried actually to refer some of the stories that are there so that people can actually get enlightened. And that was very nice thing that the media did. And also the issue of security. While people are saying that the media covered heavily about the security, we know the security of this country. We also need to tell the world that this country is secure and that kind of stuff. And also, it's also good for us to learn, to benchmark with the Americans how they run their security. So these are things that Kenyans had not seen before, and actually denying them was actually a big mistake. And the media choosing to actually tell the Kenyans that this is how the president is guarded in America, this is something that we all wanted to see. It's not that we do business all the time. We also wanted to know the kind of vehicles probably the Obama was. It's not that we don't have time we don't have things to do, but it's also pleasing to have that general knowledge and how everything is done. The way the press conference was covered by the media was also very nice, because we actually managed, some of us who are business people managed to actually get the briefs of what was happening. I know there are critics. I also criticize. If you ask me to criticize, I will have something to criticize about. But what I said is that when you are 70% does not mean that you failed because you failed at that percent. There are things that as Kenyans we need to learn to know that while you are good, there are some things that people will talk about, and unfortunately Kenyans like amplifying bad things more than good things. No Kenyan will say that he was not informed about the good things that Obama brought from the
I want us to go to what Obama said of the Kenyan media, because he praised the media in Kenya, you know, talking about the role they have played in just ensuring there's continued vibrancy in terms of democracy, and referencing it as feisty, that you don't just get away with anything. What did you think of that, Clay?
I mean, okay,
briefly, now that you all are making submissions.
Sometimes I get very jittery when the media is praised necessarily by a political figure. Yes, we made strides. Yes, we can do better actually, because I have so many misgivings about us, about how we manage our things and all that. And maybe this is for another forum. But I think by and large, yes, as a media, yes, we have our weaknesses. I know our strengths, I know our weaknesses. Okay, fine. And I would actually say that, because when the president of the US comes here, it's not that he's coming to learn things when he lands here. He knows so much because he gets briefed up to the minute. I'm not trying to be an expert on US presidency, but he gets, so I think by and large, probably the way the diplomats see it, or the way the diplomats from the US see it, is that they feel that we've done a better job.
Okay.
Inside us, I mean, like in the media entities, yes, we have our skeletons.
All right.
Yeah.
Nancy, is it because perhaps President Obama sees the media as playing the role of keeping government in check?
Yes, that could be it, but also, you know, comparing other media players in Africa.
Yes, like Kenya, Ethiopia, where he ended up going,
and where you know Kenya stands in all that scenario. I think as a country, our media is indeed vibrant compared to many other African nations, and has operated more or less in a free space. Of course, challenges notwithstanding, you know, and we've talked about some of those challenges here, both internally and also, you know, political interference and you know, a number of people being unsettled, you know, with media and the stories that it covers. But I think one of the things that we have seen is, you know, a lot of sustained coverage. Look at how media has covered corruption, and corruption in high offices, you know, sustaining that coverage, investigating and unearthing, you know, some of the stories which you could not, in some countries, you're not likely to to get away with. I think what that then does for us is, as media is, and I like the fact that, media was recognized, in all this. I actually clapped at that point.
Me
And I was
too.
like, yes. I think there are two things that stood out for me. That and one other thing, which I'll not mention because...
why?
I don't want to get bashed by Clay. But anyway,
I'll protect you, it's fine.
And for me, that was good because then it recognizes the media as an institution and the importance of media in a democratic space. Yeah. And that, what that then means is, for us as media, then how do we retain or maintain that respect for that space? By the kind of coverage that we have, by ensuring that we are not corrupted, by certain institutions or certain players, so that we maintain that high level expectation that society has of us. But also that those institutions that are supposed to, regulate and check, that then, ensure that that there is proper regulation that actually protects the work of media and does not undermine or frustrate, the work of media.
Okay.
It's also important that then those that have tried to, to strangle a media space, that then see the importance of why a vibrant media would be necessary.
All right, so we've looked largely at how the Kenyan media covered this visit and the summit, but let's look at how the rest of the world in terms of media covered this one. And ahead of the summit and Obama's arrival was that report by CNN and describing Kenya as a hotbed of terror, and that outrage across the social media. Someone tells CNN was trending. And did you get the sense that in terms of international media coverage, they were putting the issues into perspective?
Yeah, actually that thing was a black spot. Actually, it's not even, it's worse than black, the side of media.
White
and actually describing Kenya as a hotbed of terrorism and that kind of stuff. Actually, okay, they have not been our friends. We expect that, and many people probably I don't know I can't actually put anything positive on that kind of title, because anybody positive actually is supposed to actually report what the true matter was. Because while we are victim of terrorism and that kind of insecurity, it is not a reserve of Kenya. It is there all over the world. America has been attacked.
So what then do you think makes these people, who of course in covering stories around the world are aware that terrorism is not, peculiar to Kenya, what do you think informs that kind of a tagline?
It's just hatred or probably some negative politics. You see, the Obama was actually told by some politicians to actually pin the government down. You cannot rule out probably interference of some opposition people,
so
actually telling the other people to report negatively about Kenya, so that Kenya can be seen in a negative. If that can be done by our own people.
Are you suggesting that the opposition, hold up Clay, I know you're getting very excited about it. Opposition in Kenya called up this media house, CNN, and told them, now this is how you need to run your narrative. Really, is that what you're saying?
That's exactly the thing. I did not think of anything else other than that, because someone from Kenya must actually have interfered with that, or an enemy of Kenya might have. But what came out clearly during the Obama visit is that there were leaders in this country who are negative about the Obama's visit, or probably what the government is doing, and wanted probably the Obama visit to be a weapon to fight the government. Now they could use anything. So seeing that from CNN, you expect probably these people did that, and because they actually confirmed that they are negative, now we cannot rule anything else other than that.
All right, I'm
can I answer this from behind? I mean, can I just you see, that's why I said that we have too many politicians in this country. There are too many politicians that they see politics in every move. The problem is that our politicians lack a world view. That is what they don't have, because, I mean, for somebody to actually think that CNN was called, I've heard this second time I'm hearing it again, that CNN having that tagline, that hotbed of terror, was due to local politicians. I find that to be a very cheap shot. Actually, it's something that I would have dismissed if at all it was not. If at all it was. I mean, the last time I had it, I was just watching TV. I mean, if it was probably it was not said in a panel where I am. I think we have too many politicians here, and most of them is that they don't have. Many of the time, they don't have very concrete ideas, and their thinking is actually the way they interpret things leaves a lot to be desired. But I think probably we need to blame ourselves as the voters and actually having the kind of political analysis that we do. I think it is wrong to say that there's some people who are negative about the Obama visit and stuff like that, and that they've proved it, because, and that's why I talk about not having a worldview, because even where Obama is, there is opposition. He actually facing that. Even right now, even yesterday when he was in Ethiopia, he had to, day before yesterday, he had to answer to what some remarks the opposition had made in the US. So this is something that people tend to think that, oh, it's Obama, there is no opposition in the US.
Okay.
It is everywhere.
So what then do you read to CNN's headline?
Okay, that's why I said let me answer this from the back, from behind. Now, when it comes to the CNN story, the hotbed of terror, I tended to disagree with very many Kenyans actually, because I think probably the attack on CNN was a little bit unwarranted, because many of us did not actually understand what these guys were referring to. And this is where it brings me back to the same point again, that we lack a world view. What these people were referring to was not that he is going to a place where he's going to be shot and killed, or where he's going to be attacked. If you listen to the narrative, the story by Barbara Starr, I mean, it was all about how, in fact, in the recent months, there have been so many attacks against the militants, against the terrorists. And they're saying, like, this is probably, I mean, is it because, just a minute, I read the whole story.
And that's the thing, with most people,
you know,
why do headlines sell? Because most people don't have time to go to, as you did, with the story.
So
when you see that caption on screen, Clay, hotbed of terror, and they later changed anyway to region, because they described Kenya as the hotbed.
I knew that, I mean, I'd been following, you see, I'd been following the whole story from before. For me, immediately they mentioned that, they not said that Kenya is, they said he's going to, actually they kept on saying that he's going to Africa. They kept on saying that he's going to Africa. And the whole area, it was immediately understood this thing as a region. I did not pick it out. And this is again
the tag was going to Kenya, the hotbed of terror. I can show you that I have a screenshot.
This is the whole problem we have, is that sometimes we're very small fish, and we think that actually we are big players in the whole world, and we think like the sun rises from our bodies, you know.
But let me ask you this finally.
And I think we overreacted, and this brings me to another point, is that we are a nation, we are a very angry people. We are just too angry that actually the minutest imagination of being provoked, and then we spark.
Listen, Clay, look at it from this perspective. This is an international media house with reach all over the world, whatever it is you can access. So this particular headline, you're talking about, you got to read the details, you've been following coverage. But look at it from the point of perspective. The biggest issue Kenya has grappled with is how the world views her because of this kind of headlines. So when such a headline that's so blanket, and you're saying you read the stories, that doesn't help.
Yeah, allow me to comment.
Somebody commented this. Somebody said this.
Let me comment on
that. There was a trending topic the other day about if Africa was a bar. Somebody commented that Kenya would be that guy who would walk into a bar with his girlfriend, criticize her the whole night, and when somebody actually joins in to criticize her also, then the Kenyan guy starts fighting.
Okay, our time is up. 1 minute.
Yeah. And I need to get more than a minute. You can't ignore half.
Okay,
true. Just like Obama said. 2.5 minutes. You know, I think one, arguing that this was a political agenda from the opposition is rather simplistic. And I think it waters down everything that we try to do on this platform. You know, because this is an opportunity for us to ask ourselves, what has media done positively and negatively? So let's not forget that. But going back to, you know, Kenya is, you know, highlighted as being a hotbed of terror. I think what we need to understand is, and I don't want to go academic, but, you know, from a media framing point of view, when you look at the framing theory, that media houses have a certain agenda, you know, that they hope to bring out and sway, you know, perception towards a certain, you know, a certain way of looking at things. And then we need to look at it from the international media's point of view. What has been the agenda or the framing, not just of Kenya but of Africa, from the international media's point of view, you know? And that particular headline, the story notwithstanding, the fact that that is what is playing on the screen, because when people make sense out of media content, it's the pictures, it's the words, the printed, crawl on the screen, and of course, the audio files. And you want to interpret that in totality. For many people, what Clay is talking about in terms of what was said, that is not what everybody remembers. What people are remembering is what was on the screen. And what was on the screen was that particular headline. And that's why they then were able to come out later and change it. Why didn't they come out and defend it and say, yes, we can actually stand by our words and why we chose to these kinds of words. The fact that they actually were able to pull that down at some point and change it means that they were responding.
Did they even explain that we are changing it because of the company?
Well, they did.
Oh, please, Clay.
You don't need to be told,
oh, now we are changing. They changed it.
I think we are overreacting.
And we are right to overreact because our sense of patriotism,
Are you Kenyan, Clay?
That is what I'm saying, was being provoked. And it's an opportunity. I mean, you can't blame Kenyans for responding in the way that they did, because their image is out there and it's being tarnished, So there was nothing wrong with them doing that. There was nothing wrong with them expressing themselves.
So he was nodding when you said that usually some of these media houses will have agendas.
Yes.
So you slightly then agree with him that perhaps that agenda could be to propagate interests of other individuals.
No, listen, from looking at the international media and how international media has over the years profiled Africa, in some instances they don't even know, they don't even understand the African continent. There was a time when there was a story, I think they said there was something happening in Nigeria, in Nairobi, Nigeria, and that was CNN, So I think it's an opportunity for us then, as local media houses, as local training institutions, to ask ourselves, what are we doing to ensure that we train our students adequately to be able to cover our continent properly? What are we doing as media houses locally to be able to shift the focus from that kind of negative coverage that that we see on international media? And I think before Obama came, I remember talking about this on, I think it was on KTN, that this is an opportunity for us now as Kenyan media to shift the focus. That we have 3 days where the world is actually going to be focusing on what is happening here, to be able to tell the Kenyan story. But that does not change the fact that yes, that particular headline talks about certain things that we need to look at, and as a democratic country that we are, what then does this mean for us, And when you talk about a hotbed, it's somewhere where certain things thrive, So what are we doing in terms of the security mechanisms that are in place to ensure that we rewrite that narrative that the international media thinks of us? But it doesn't mean that then is a kind of image that you would want out there. We also need to be able to protect our sovereignty as a country, and our sense of patriotism in that particular case is what people were actually responding to.
Yeah, you had something.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that probably you'll agree with me that writing skills allow that we interpret the story depended heavily on the writer. CNN is not a quack studio, is a professional studio, and once they do a story, once they have a story, we don't interpret it as a story from quacks. We interpret that story as a story from professionals, so they mean what they write. We also don't need to underrate that media houses are in history, that they are best politicians actually in the world. They have actually been used by politicians to build their political agendas. We also don't need to underrate that Raila Odinga is not a junior journalist. He's not a junior politician. He's a senior politician who is experienced, who has also traveled across the world, who has links across the world, who has even many agents across the world supporting his political agenda. Someone at the level of presidential material for many years. He has so many friends outside there who can actually
and
build.
So what does he benefit from painting his country
let me connect it. If you remember, during the time when we had a lot of terrorism attacks here, I said some other time that the traveling to America and that kind of need to be investigated, and also his happiness, his joy when his utterances when the Kenya is attacked, is that he's not patriotic enough to actually show that he's solidifying himself with the attack the way they did at Westgate. He's actually like he's happy with the attack. What we are saying, let me say, he's using the attack to portray the government as weak, and now we have to remove the government from power, the way it's being done in other Central Africa countries. So that now this thing of terrorism, we cannot rule out. It can be used by the opposition to actually try to bring down the government by way of making it dirty. And actually the best time to do that was when the Obama was here, so that Obama cannot actually side with the government. Luckily, he did not.
Okay.
However, that is not the first time you're hearing this kind of
remarks. This is what I said earlier, is that we have too many politicians in this country who actually, most of the time, 90% of the time or even higher, most of their ideas actually don't make sense. And when I say that we lack a worldview, is that one thing they don't understand is that something like CNN actually is what they call liberal media, if anything, is very pro-Obama. You see, that's one thing, that is, do not do something that actually is anti-Obama per se. But the problem we have is that too many politicians and political analysts is that their favorite punching bag is Raila. Even when he does not rain, it is because of Raila spoke to the rain gods and all that. And that's why sometimes I find that these are some of the things that actually are holding us back. I would believe that actually even politicians in the opposition now, it would get to a point that probably they're in government and everything else they would be blaming it on the opposition. And this is what this kind of, we still have not gotten to a level where we can look at one another as people who can probably work together, whether you're in the opposition and in the government, and advance this country.
All right.
So that's why we end up having this kind of not simplistic, actually cheap shot, you know.
Our time is up, Claire. I want you in less than a minute, in each of you, to take this forward for us. So Obama has left, GES is over, 6th edition done. You had alluded to this earlier, Buka, talking about that there needs to be now, breaking down of what emerged from that. What is it you hope in coming days? Because already we've seen the story, as you were saying, one of the media houses was talking about, who was this individual. So it might just completely veer off. And instead of capitalizing on the agenda,
it will do that, and I think that's why that's why the media. That's why I kept on saying that our clients are belligerent and all, and they need direction. So actually, right now we have to put these guys on the right track and tell them, come on, these are the games, these are the bilateral talks, these are the things that came out of the bilateral.
So who
talks.
are you telling that?
I mean, we need to inform.
The media needs to do that.
Yeah, we need to inform people like the gentleman here. He's a businessman. These are some of the games that actually, after the bilateral talks with the government, because these are the games that this is how you're going to get and all that. Now, if your brother and all that wants to go to the U.S., I mean, the visa will be. But the
absence of that from the media then allows those kind of narratives to thrive.
Yes, but that's why I say that now we have to put them back on track. Now, the media now has a very, very difficult task, because I think the only people who are remaining in this country to steer it is the media. If we have this kind of political rhetoric,
Okay, finally.
Yeah, I think I don't want to comment about the last statement that the gentleman made, because I think the purpose of this show is to for us to look at ourselves as media and ask ourselves, what have we done right, what haven't we done right, and going forward, what do we need to do? So we shouldn't lose the premise of this particular show, and it's a good opportunity for us to be able to do this every time. I think what has happened is that media has a huge task ahead of it in the next coming weeks. There is a lot of content, that they can cover, from, the offshoots of whatever happened, the 3 days that President Obama was here, the speeches that were given by, the heads of state, President Uhuru Kenyatta and President Obama. One of the things that I liked about, listening to our two heads of state was, and not the two heads of state, we only have one head of state, was the fact that they actually paint a very positive image of this country. And for once you actually sit down and you you appreciate the fact that you're Kenyan,
Yeah.
which I think over the last couple of years or the last couple of months has, there's been a lot of despair.
Okay.
And so can we then, cover what are our strengths? What is it that we're good at? Where are we leading? And also then ask ourselves, where have we failed?
All right.
And point us towards that direction.
Okay.
And then again, there's a speech that President Obama made in Ethiopia, of course looking at the African continent as a whole, which also needs to be broken down in terms of how does Kenya fit into that, that particular speech that he was given.
Okay.
And then of course focusing on the, on the GES summit and the offshoots and the gains that this is going to have for this country. What are the challenges that then make it difficult for people to do business? What do we need to change in terms of policy, that can then make it easier, for young people
to be able
to grow and engage in business. That for me is a kind of content that I would like to see.
And now they should not be political analysts.
Yeah, I've
all their
seen
life.
the journalists. Okay, probably you don't like what I say, but I would like to know me as a business person, not like a politician.
Yeah.
The journalists have actually come up with the issue of sports. There is a sport page. Like on Thursday we have real estate. I expect probably to see proper airtime for innovators, like the University of Nairobi is now doing the first innovation week that is starting in August. We are happy about that kind of development because we need innovation in this country. If other universities will adopt the same thing, I've said most of the universities don't actually push the students into innovation world. They push them into employment world, which is very wrong. We also need to see a lot of airing of traditional things that are like with the cultural activity that was done in Obama's home. Probably we would like to see that probably duplicating the whole time.
All right, Simon Goge, politician, businessman, or aspiring politician.
I would like you to know me as a business person.
Dr. Nancy Buka, who's the chair of the journalism department at the Multimedia University, and Clay Muganda, who's a features editor here at the Standard on Sunday. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us on the newsroom. And thank you as well for your feedback. I see quite a number of your tweets. Perhaps we'll sample them towards the end of the show. But don't go away, because when we return, my colleague Michael will be taking over for our relationship segment. Today, it's all about boundaries and whether, say, for example, if Clay is married,
IBC.
not the IBC boundaries, boundaries in a relationship. Stand by for that chat.